Well, it's not Godzilla. Although it is his birthday today. Happy birthday. I don't know. I'm for a loop on this one, Rhino.
This is the current box office champion, Five Nights at Freddy's.
Oh, no wonder I didn't know. No, thank you.
And it's a big box office winner.
And it's a scary one, right?
Yeah. And it's streaming. It's
so
amazing.
people,
I can't figure out the box office anymore.
Well, I would be more likely to have watched Top Gun streaming at home before going to see it if I had the option versus a scary movie. I feel like a scary movie is just not as scary if you're not you like scary movies.
Right.
You want to be in the whole thing.
Yeah.
Like you want to be there for the whole thing.
There's some that are definitely meant to see with other people. Yeah.
Yes. Like it would be really terrible to watch that at home by yourself.
Yeah. Yes. If that happened to me, and I often am the only person in a theater because I go at such odd times. But if that ever happened, I would get up and walk out. I could not handle that by myself.
So it's doing well, huh? People like to be frightened.
Yeah. So, they're saying their target audience was teenage boys, and apparently they all showed up and brought a couple of friends. So
I guess so.
Yeah.
All right. Well, what's going on this weekend?
Well, the big new release this weekend in my world is Priscilla.
Yes.
Yeah, and I didn't realize until I did get to see this one yesterday that it's based on. I knew that Priscilla Presley's very involved, and I think she's a producer. But I did not realize that this movie is based on her book Elvis and Me that was written in 1985. Now, you're probably way too young, but when I was a kid, it was like the Oscars. It was like a much hyped television event, when they did a TV movie based on that book. I think it was released late 80s maybe. And everybody watched it because that's back in the day where you had 3 TV stations to watch, So I remember that. So this is just kind of a new telling of that same story. And it's, 100% Priscilla's story. And we follow her as that teenager who's stationed with her family in Germany. And she's lonely. Elvis is there. They meet. And of course, the rest is history. But, looking at it now as a grown up, it's like we all know that she was 14 when they met, but I don't think I really realized until I saw this movie that he was 24. That is weird. And the other thing is, you don't think of Elvis without her, and you don't think of Priscilla without Elvis. And it's like they really weren't together that long in the grand scheme of things. It's just crazy. But the standout of this movie is the actress that plays Priscilla. She has already won some international film awards for Best Actress. But her name is Kaylee Spaney, I believe is how you say her last name. She grew up in Tennessee, so she's got a great little Southern accent. Priscilla is originally from Texas. But very well acted. The actor that plays Elvis is super tall, Jacob Elordi, which we know from The Kissing Booth. But, you kind of don't think about it. I thought it might be distracting because he's like 6'5", which is really tall for an actor, especially. But he did a great job as Elvis. And I did see an interview. They are able to promote this movie because they've got an agreement in place. It's a smaller independent film. And he said that he had begun preparing for this movie when Elvis came out last year, and he saw Austin Butler, and he was like, I got to step it up. And so he worked a little bit harder, but he did a great job. But Elvis is definitely a supporting character in this movie. It is 100% Priscilla's story. And
does it line up, though, with Elvis?
It does. Like the timeline does.
Like if you load them over, it's just sort of like it just shows more behind the scenes if you're watching his versus behind the scenes if you're watching her.
Right. Just they're 2 different viewpoints. And like in Elvis, you see a lot. The Colonel is as big of a part of that movie as Elvis is. And this one, Colonel's not even on screen. you see a couple of phone calls with him and his name's mentioned a time or two, but he's not even in it. So this one, it really, most of the movie, I would say 95% of it is before they even got married. So, it's like you really get to see what life was like for her living in Graceland by herself, really, because, he was off. He was always making a movie or touring or whatever. So she was there by herself, bored out of her mind,
Ooh.
So, yeah, but it was very good, especially if you're an Elvis fan. Go see it. It's just another fun look at,
another
his
side
world.
of it,
Yeah,
too. And kudos for her for being able to share her story before,
And she's, 100% involved and gave it a thumbs up. It's almost a repeat of what she did with Elvis this time last year. So it's kind of fun to see her get to go through that again. Sadly, without Lisa this time. But, I will not be surprised at all if we see this one come Oscar nomination day. And then the other big new release this weekend is What Happens Later, which is the new Meg Ryan romantic comedy, which, she is very well known for. And we haven't seen her in a long time. And so she's been doing the rounds this week promoting the movie. And she said, I just wanted to take some time and work on the rest of my life. I wanted to develop relationships, other hobbies, other interests. And so that's what she's been doing. This movie is based on a play, and she adapted it. She wrote the screenplay. She was set to direct it. She started casting, and she was getting rejected by her first choice, her second choice. And so she finally said, I'll just do it. So she's, the star. But the interesting thing about this movie is there's only two people. There's only two voices in the whole movie. Actually, there's a third. You hear a PA announcer in the airport. But it's these two people that dated in college, broke up, and they are both in this airport during a huge snowstorm. It's supposed to be like one of the worst storms in history, and they're just kind of stranded there together, and it gives them time to talk out what happened and try to grow and learn from their past.
That's a big ask of two act. I mean, with no other.
I know, a lot of dialogue, and then of course David Duchovny plays her love interest / ex. And, he's another one of those actors that he's like super smart and he can do anything. So I have not seen the movie yet, but just the clips I've seen.
Looks good.
They just look like they have such chemistry. So I'm excited to see it.
Is there anything else coming out?
There's one more called The Marsh King's Daughter. And this is supposed to be wide release this weekend, but it's not on very many screens. So it may be next weekend that we'll see it a little wider. But this is a rated R one, and it stars Daisy Ridley. And it's a kind of a gritty kind of movie. It's a thriller. She plays a woman that's got this past where she was basically held captive in the wilderness, she and her mother, by her father. And so she has to go back and this father has been in prison. He's been released. And so she's got to kind of go back and deal with all of that.
I would say there's a few loose ends to tie up.
But yeah, it's one of those that sounds like it's going to be, kind of suspenseful, and kind of edge of your seat kind of movie. So, and Daisy Ridley, she's such a great actress. So if you're a fan of hers, I would say definitely check it out.
Bubba from Meridian wants to know if you've heard anything about Boys in the Boat.
Yes, George Clooney directed it, and it's coming out, I believe, in December. That may be a Christmas Day movie, but it looks phenomenal. I think it's going to be really good. And my favorite is I saw some behind the scenes pictures, and you've got all these guys dressed in their, I think it takes place during World War
something.
And so they've got all that garb on.
One of them.
And George Clooney's there with his, Starbucks coffee. So it's kind of a funny thing to see. But yes, I feel like that's another one that we're going to hear
So the
a lot more.
holidays, we've kind of got some good ones.
Yeah, we're kind of getting to the point now where we're going to have something good every weekend, a big movie every weekend.
Do you think the Meg Ryan one will end up being streamed?
I think it will probably
Take a minute.
Yeah, I would say in probably a couple of months.
Well, I will be watching it before I watch. What's the other one? What was it? Five Night Freddy's.
Oh yeah, Five Nights at Freddy's. Five Nights at Freddy's.
Yeah, no, thank you on that one. All right, Tanya, thank you for your time. You guys stick with this. We got a little bit more for you coming up next.